Black Sheep Shipping presents A Route of All Kinds. Content warnings can be found in the description.
Welcome back.
I have good news.
You don't look like you have good news.
They want to drop the charges. Well, some of them, at least. It would remove the more serious charges and get you out in only a few years. You could be out in 6 months with a plea.
That's a far cry from the rest of my life.
It's good news.
But you don't trust it.
I would be a pretty terrible defense lawyer to trust the prosecution to that extent. Let's just keep going and prepare for the worst. You were on your way back to Kedros, correct?
Almost. I drove for 4 hours before stopping. I needed gas again. The clerk was a nice guy. I was his first of the day, but he could tell I'd been through something awful. He gave me a bottle of water and told me he'd fill up the car while I freshened up in the bathroom. I wasn't normally inclined to leave money like that unattended, but I needed a bathroom. I'd been smelling myself the whole ride, and God, I thought I must have gone rancid. My rotten soul seeping out. When I got back, I still smelled it, but the clerk didn't seem fazed. I figured he was being polite. We went in so I could pay the man, and then I finally found my wallet. I hadn't been able to find it at the bank, but 3 days later...
Mr. Banks, I can tell when you're stalling. Please.
I wasn't stalling. This is just where it gets unpleasant for me. I asked if he could break 100. Didn't even have a chance to pull out my wallet. He opened the till and pulled out what looked like a tongue and a couple of teeth. I told him I had to get something from my car and drove the hell off. I didn't know what he'd been planning, but I have not survived this long by hanging around people who have handfuls of molars on display. Honestly, I was so tired, I thought he might have been threatening me. Maybe he'd seen what was in the back seat. I was shook, but it was morning. I was hungry, and it's better not to be on the road after all that. I found...
Hold on, what town was this?
Look, I don't know. I wasn't there long.
I need something to go off of, a direction at least.
You need to listen. This isn't the kind of place you would forget. If I don't remember, it's because I shouldn't remember. Because I don't want to remember. This is not a place I would want you to go to.
Mr. Banks, the more you don't tell me, the worse our standing with your case will be.
Some of this, I don't want you to know for your own good. Case be damned.
What did you do next?
I pulled into a lot, and I went into a diner. It felt like the kind of place I needed. Diners have that familiarity to them. They don't repeat, but they rhyme. I always felt safe inside for that. It was empty, still pretty early. I think there was a man at the counter drinking coffee, but I'm not sure. I spent a long time staring out a window, watching people come in. I was supposed to be watching the road for anything unusual, but I kept falling asleep, and I wasn't seeing anything except regulars. After my third cup of coffee, I started to come out of my daze. Then, when I tasted number 4, I was wide awake. Iron. I looked at the cup and I thought I was bleeding. Bit my lip or something. I noticed the red on the cup. I tried to call the waitress over, but turning around, I saw why. I thought there had been some kind of accident. The waitress had blood all over her face. Her hands were worse, but I was watching what they were doing. She was taking pieces of red meat from a man eating what I think was eggs, but this meat was moving. I watched her lift up what he handed her and drop it into her mouth. She didn't chew or swallow, just kept talking to him. He said something funny and I saw her teeth. They were sharp, but not because they were filed or pointed. They were jagged. It was like she'd been chewing on rocks. I really didn't know what I was looking at until he took his knife off the table and started sawing into her leg. She didn't blink, just kept pouring coffee with a hand so steady I would have thought she had been a surgeon. He took a piece of skin off about 2 inches long, put it in his pocket. Now I stood up. I had just watched a man cut a waitress, and I do not let men hurt women like that. I walked over and asked what he thought he was doing. He didn't say anything. Bloody hands, meat dried into his hair and clothes. Dumbstruck, I told him to show me what was in his pocket, and casual as the devil, he took out a piece of skin, along with something that looked a lot like a toe. I asked him what it was. He looked at me like I was stupid and told me $5.25. I stumbled away and scanned the other booths. Blood everywhere. I watched people handing that waitress everything they had. I watched a man cut off his eyelids with a steak knife, and then that waitress just stuffed them into her apron, where a dark spot was forming. The more I looked, the more I saw cuts. These people were sick. They were missing chunks, missing eyes, dried blood making their clothes stiff, wet blood making their hands shine. I slipped. I don't know if it was some piece of a person or if I was just too far past my limit, but I fell and hit my head. I probably had a concussion. I woke up to everyone in that diner standing over me. They were all bent, so that their seemingly endless supply of blood and God knows what poured down over me out of whatever holes it could get out of. Must have been out for a while, considering the size of pool I was in. They hissed and gurgled out that they wanted me to stay for an ambulance, but I pushed them all aside and fought my way out to my car. I splashed the rest of the water on my face and checked the trunk. You could guess what I found. Livers, hearts, pound after pound of flesh. Shylock be damned. Inside the bags was so much stinking meat that I threw up on the spot. I'm surprised I hadn't sooner. I would have passed out again, but considering the concussion, I thought it was a bad idea. I was still in shock, but I knew better than to let anyone see that in my trunk. I washed my hands in a ditch and went to get some gas. Regrettably, there was only one gas station in town, so I grabbed 2 gas cans and pumped it myself this time. When I went inside, my wallet was not any prettier than my trunk. Still, the same clerk stood there waiting for something more than my apology for running out earlier. Right then, I knew how all this worked. I just pinched a few bits from my wallet. He reached for a box cutter, but I told him, keep the change. I don't know what happened to the money, all that money, but I know it came out of Kedros. Driving back was awful. I was covered in diner goers, and the car smelled like the inside of a... Use your imagination. I thought about what was happening. Maybe it was a curse. maybe I brought it with me and everywhere else was okay. That notion left me quickly as I caught glimpses of other drivers pleading against windows. Maybe it was sleep deprivation, maybe the concussion, but my father made that drive with me. He kept telling me, "Kid, you never touch that green shit. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Promise me." I spent hours agonizing over what to do. At first, I'd intended on heading south, burn the meat, and hope I could find somewhere clean. But as I got closer to Kedros, the air changed. Not a smell for your nose, a smell for your nerves. A teeth-grinding feeling that made me want to get as far from that bank as I could. By 2 a.m., I was set on burning that fucking building to the ground. It was easy. I went in the same way I had the night before. No police tape. The back door hadn't even been locked. I probably should have questioned that more. I blame my headache. Oh, those gas cans were heavy, but I had a lot of ground to cover, so I needed them both. I had to go from one end of the building to the other to make sure it went up all at once. I wasn't at my strongest, so I left one gas can in the lobby and started dousing the offices. I kept hearing things, like a record playing the bits of conversation you'd hear in a bank. No words, just conversation. I poured the gas over the desks and walls, under doors leading all the way back to that lobby. I'd been trailing it backwards. And when I turned around to get the other can, it wasn't where I left it. No, it had definitely moved. The gas was sitting by the door to the vault, which had swung wide open. No sign of the holes I'd made. I stared at it for a long time. A really long time. Remember those instincts I mentioned? I set a rag of light, and I tossed it back the way I came. The trail of gas lit up the hallway, and just like in the window, I saw dozens of things, all looking at me. This time, with their mouths hanging open, like they were trying to scream, but didn't understand what it was supposed to look like. No moving, just jaws split so wide, they seemed broken. I saw them crouched and looking around doors from under desks and chairs. A few seemed to be hanging from the ceiling. They didn't seem to care about the fire, so I ran. In perfect time, every one of them dropped to the floor and crawled on their hands and feet faster than most people could run. Half were already on fire by the time I made it to my car. Barely made it. I locked myself in and, I don't know, I could only just sit there. I couldn't move while they climbed over the car and stared in at me. They didn't have eyes. I swear they were staring, but they weren't looking out of anything. It took a minute, but I heard them break open the trunk. It wasn't long before I started seeing red smear against the windows. I saw enough people before they were completely covered to know what was being done with that meat. I thought I was dead when one broke the back window, but they only pulled up those bags. I wouldn't turn around, but I watched their silhouettes through the red-tinted glass for hours while the building burned behind them. I don't remember what happened after that. I remember a cop breaking my front window and pulling me out. You know the rest of it.
There's been no mention of any bodies found. Your mental state and that concussion could help you get sent to a medical facility. It might be able to help reduce your sentence.
I want life. There's no cash in a prison.
I can't do that. I can't in good conscience advocate for that. It's clear that you've been through a lot, and a full evaluation from a psychologist is very necessary.
And if I confess to the other 12 banks? I know you mean well, but I want this. I'm waiving my right to counsel, and I'm not breathing a word of anything I've told you. And you can't tell them either. This whole conversation was protected.
I would strongly advise you against—
You were never here to advise me. You were here to listen. I had to tell someone the truth once.
Mr. Banks, I don't believe you're in a state of mind to—
Kid. I want to be called Kid.
I wish you the best, Kid. If you change your mind, please have them contact me.
I won't, but you can do me a favor. I need you to promise me you'll go and wash your hands before giving me anything to sign.
This episode was written and edited by D.V. Clarke and directed by Alex Valentino. The lawyer was played by Vero Morales, and Kid Banks was played by Quincy R. Moore. This episode was announced by Alexander Hanley, with musical theme by Onlooker Air, and cover art by OddOblivion. This episode of Black Sheep Shipping is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 4.0 international license. Thanks for listening.